I'll start recording. Yeah, why don't you begin with the questions? That's a great way to start.
Cool. So, practice all the X, Y sort of permutations across the different keys. Had lots of fun with them. Tried playing them with some songs. Worked
Hmm.
out pretty well. I can see how it's a really versatile sort of fingering format,
Hmm.
voicing format that helps with a lot of songs. Having trouble really adapting, I think that part's cool. Just using the bebop scale and using it and practicing it has been interesting. Like I get it in theory, and I
Hmm.
practice it across all different keys. But don't really know how to use it yet. Like would love to talk through that and sort of get an understanding of like how to use it when really like improvising. I guess.
Sure. Okay. So one thing about the bebop scale is that
Hmm.
it's really a means to an end in a way. Like it's
Yeah.
it's a it's a scale, but really it's sort of a grammar too. Like it's a way of thinking about lines,
Yep.
and it's working backwards from like the way the guy who invented it was a great jazz educator named David Baker, and he like analyzed all these recordings and he created this bebop. He's like, this is what they're doing.
Yep.
Now, when you actually listen to what Charlie Parker did in practice, it's
Mhm.
way less measured and more organic and more fast and loose than the way that
Okay.
we're learning right now. But
Gotcha.
this is a way of thinking about making your lines more rhythmic. And I think maybe the best teacher of how to use this type of material is listening to bebop.
Mhm.
So, for instance, like so Charlie Parker and Dizzy Gillespie were like
Yep.
created this style. It's mostly eighth notes and it's really chromatic, and
Yeah.
they used it to play over standard chord progressions. And then ever since then, every jazz musician after that has kind of been basing this approach, their approach to improvisation on this bebop material. And everybody does it in a different way, but the basic idea is that the lines swing in a certain way because there's chromatic notes added that kind of help outline the harmony.
Mhm.
So, for instance, I can't remember. Like, do you have a real book or do you have like a?
Yeah, I have a real book, and I also downloaded iReal, so I've been using both of
Okay,
these.
great.
Yeah. I've been
Uh,
using iReal a lot more than the real book though, just because it's fun to
mhm.
practice with.
Which edition of the real book do you have?
Volume one edition. I'm not sure. The sixth edition probably.
Okay, then that's great. Okay, great. So, why don't you actually open up this one to a tune called Anthropology?
Ah, fun. Okay, it's been a while.
Have you played this one before, or heard it, or?
I played it as a drummer. Never played it as a
Uh-huh.
as a pianist.
So the idea with Anthropology is you don't really hear the bebop scale in this form at all, but
Right.
you'll notice that there's encirclements of notes and some tools that we'll learn about today, like deflection and stuff like that. So the tune itself, so it's a rhythm changes, which might be something you were familiar with as a drummer. It's like the same chords as I've got rhythm. So
Hmm.
it's like a section that's primarily around B flat major almost the entire time, and then a
Hmm.
bridge that's like some dominant chords.
Hmm.
Okay, so the melody of Anthropology. So there's a lot of chords inserted
Wow.
in the middle,
Yep.
but it's primary. Like let's look at the first motive. So that's like the B flat major scale, right? So we're playing an B flat arpeggio. Then we're surrounding the third. Why don't you actually try to play it? Let's get it under your fingers. I think you'll see it
Yeah.
easier if you play it.
Yeah. I probably need a while to sort of like get back to this. This will be cool. So the other thing is I have nerves when playing in front of people, so I need to sort of like do that. Take a while to figure that out. All right, so it's a B flat major scale, right? So
Yes,
that's
yes. Hmm.
cool. So do you want me to just play the melody
Yeah,
line?
let's just play the melody for right now.
Cool. So this is This is a B flat. Right?
Yeah, that's right so far.
And yeah,
I'm gonna actually get my copy up there. It should actually start with an upbeat of F, but let me just make sure that they have that in this version. I'll make sure I'm looking at the same music as you.
yeah,
Um,
I don't see the upbeat of F right there.
okay, let's. For some reason, they put it in the ending, in the first ending, but they didn't add it. So let's just think of it. It has an upbeat of an F at the beginning. So a good fingering you could use for this might be like 1, 2, 4.
Yep.
And then 3, 2. And then when you do this encirclement, we can do 4, 2, 3, 5. Yeah, but use a D. Sorry, a C sharp. It's close. It's E flat, C sharp, then D natural, F.
Got it. Yeah. Yeah, I don't think I'm seeing what I'm seeing here, so I'm just gonna follow your fingers completely.
Okay, great. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. So that's actually all we need here. So.
Just one.
So 1, 2, 4, 3, 2. Okay, and then 4, 2, 3, 5. Good. That's great. Good. Let's actually play this in the key of C now. So let's see if we can see that same shape here. So the majority of it is going to be all white keys, except for when we encircle the third of this. So.
Sorry.
Almost. So we're playing 2 notes around that E, and then playing. So E, D sharp, E, G. Sorry, F, D sharp, E, G.
Yep.
Perfect. Yep.
Okay. So that's what you mean by encircling. Like basically, the third here would be like the E, right? And it's really literally just sort of dancing around the E.
Exactly. Like imagine that you could have a line like.
Right.
That would be very similar to this. We've just added in some extra material around the E. So, let's kind of look at what that would mean for our bebop scale. So you learned the bebop major scale in a few keys, right? So let's take a look in C, because it's the easiest key to do. Let's just play a descending C bebop scale, get warmed up with that.
Okay.
Good. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to encircle the root. So I played 2 half steps around that C, and then played the scale as if, nothing happened.
Cool.
Good. Now you'll notice that encirclement is 2 notes long, so it will it won't disrupt the flow of the scale. Now let's do it with let's encircle a different note. Now you'll notice that. Well, I'll show you this first, and then you'll notice why we have to make a little bit of an adjustment. Let's encircle the third this time, and we'll start from the third. So we'll go. Good. Okay, that seemed to work well. So now let's see what happens if we've noticed we can do that. Let's see. Can we encircle that note in the middle of the line? Not really. So you'll notice what happens. And that's a little funny sounding. and then we encircle it and play. We have two Fs in a row. It sounds very strange, like we've interrupted the momentum of the line. You
Yeah,
might.
it also sounds like the beginning, like whenever you encircle something. I mean, right now the way you're playing it, it sounds like the beginning of a line, right?
Hmm. It certainly can. Now, if I actually, so remember, one thing that we learned from the bebop scale is that we can always add in half steps to fill in spaces that are awkward. So why don't we, instead of playing two Fs, I just added another half step, and then I'm back to on the beat. So one.
So we start from the C again, descend
Mhm.
down, do a bebop scale, and add an F sharp.
Because the alternative, if I don't add that F sharp, what's going to happen is this. Now I encircle, and I've played the F twice in a row. It sounds very
Yeah,
weird.
yeah.
So adding that in makes it a little bit more palatable.
Cool. Let me try. Wait, I missed a note there.
No, you played it perfectly.
Okay. I wasn't on. I didn't feel the swing there though. But yeah. Okay. There
Yeah,
you
you
go.
ended. Yeah, you had an E on the beat and a C on the beat, so it was good.
Got it.
Let's see if we could encircle the G. We're actually going to have a similar problem here.
Yeah.
So can you see what the solution we might use is? Let's add in another half step where we have space.
Right. Um,
So try to figure it out.
okay. So encircle to G basically.
Mhm.
So with the F.
Okay, you actually found a different answer that is a correct one, but we aren't there yet. But that's the right idea. So what you did is what we call deflection. That's the next thing we'll talk about. Think
Okay.
about like adding an if we can add in a half step here,
Got it.
and then we have enough notes to end. Then we get to the encirclement on the beat.
So in this case, it would be the B flat, right?
Mhm.
No.
And then we continue. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Interesting. Like, okay. So I'm wrapping my head around both theory and just playing by ear, which is fascinating.
Yep. And so just to make sure you don't flip around which note's long and short when you play
Yeah.
it. Excellent. Okay, good. Now let's talk about the other thing that you just did, which is um, David calls it deflection in his book, but it's this idea of approaching from beneath a note when we would be repeating notes or making the line otherwise awkward.
Hmm.
We can do that. So, for instance, your example was great. We can all the other time that it's great to do that is approaching the third, like that. So you'll notice that oftentimes deflection, which is approaching like from beneath or doing these other things, or surrounding a note, or even doing these things where you sort of tread water by going like there's just a few devices that he has that that basically don't disrupt the flow of the line and let it keep moving. Now, if I think that if you wanted to learn to play bebop like a machine and like the kind of like not organic and just rules based way that David proposed, we would go a little bit more deeply into these things. So I studied with David for a number of years, and the way that he does is that we basically play every possible permutation. So it's like you start on C, D flat, then D flat, and you like do everything until you're playing these lines that are like or whatever. Like you basically are playing alphabet soup the whole time.
Right.
So the thing that's good about this approach is that it gets you thinking about constructing lines in a more purposeful way, where you're thinking more about the harmony. And I think that his way and the way of using the bebop scale is like very, very excellent for that. But I think it should be also tempered with listening to what actual players that weren't academics did with the bebop scale, because the theory always comes after the art. So like the theory explains what's going on, but
Right.
you're going to sound like a typewriter if you only do it in these kind of ways. Because the big thing, especially being a drummer, you'll notice is that these are not very rhythmically compelling compared to. It even sounds like a snare drum exercise, kind of like the beginning of Anthropology. So, um, this way of looking at using chromaticism is something I want you to get into your playing, but it can feel weird to apply them and feel creative with them when you start to use them, because it really is handcuffs rhythmically when you start using it.
I'm definitely at this stage right now. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, where we're getting with this is that if you've gone through and done this homework with the bebop scales, I think that in a certain way that serves as enough. Where I'd like to bring you as quick as possible is to looking at actual Charlie Parker and trying to use those concepts.
Okay.
So check out the bridge, for instance, of this tune. So it's on the fourth line here,
Mhm.
and there's an F sharp tied over,
Mhm.
and you can see this line. Okay, so this is a D7 chord. I think you can see there's your deflection that you saw before. Dum. See
Yeah.
those, like those half steps leading up to the A there.
Mhm.
So it's like F sharp. So lines like that,
Yep.
where we're using these concepts. So do you know from being a drummer any other bebop tunes? Like you don't need to know them on piano, but which ones do you remember playing?
Um, I don't actually. It's been a while. I think what would happen. I think I would have to listen to the trumpeter just to play something and I'd go like, oh, that tune, and then yeah.
Okay, so why don't we do this? I want to set up a couple things for you that you're going to take around a few keys and think about playing. So let's actually do that. I'll make a list here. So I'd like for you to learn. It will be small parts. So the
Yeah.
first bar of Anthropology.
Okay.
Okay, so that's doable in all keys, or at
Yep.
least as many keys as you're working with right now. So like. So be able to play it and kind of visualize it. I think visualizing it while thinking of the triad and scale is going to start to kind of make some connections for you. Now, the other thing I want you to learn is the first ending. So the the first ending of Anthropology is so this. So so you can see there's encirclement, right?
Mm.
But it also has da ba da ba da da. Same idea as
Mm.
the rhythmic aspect of bebop is always ending on these offbeats. So it actually literally has a sound of bebop, like it's like ba da ba da ba da ba bebop, like that, like it's ending short. So let's just do that with those two patterns to start. Now you'll notice that chord progression is something special here: D minor, G7, C minor, F7. So what is it? Do you know what some of those patterns are?
D minor F7,
Sorry, D minor G7.
D minor G7.
Mhm.
Isn't that like the minor 2 5 2 4 1? Yeah, two
Yeah,
five one.
those are two fives. Very good. So D minor G
Yeah.
is a 2/5. and then
Yeah.
C minor F
It's
is
another.
another 2/5. Right.
Yeah.
And you'll notice here, I think because you probably practiced some of these in this order, they're descending in whole steps, right? So D, C. So the other thing is that they have a special relationship to a key. So we're in the key of B flat here. So often this pattern is called a 3, 6, 2, 5, 1. Exactly.
Gotcha.
So there's another name of this, which you probably do know as a drummer, which is turnaround,
Yes.
because like that's just a generic term for anything that gets you back to the one chord.
Yep.
So in jazz, there's like 10 10 or so common turnarounds that are basically just variations of each other. Like they're just certain subbing out certain chords or doing certain things. 3 6 2 5 is the one that shows up the most in tunes. So this this line and just kind of seeing its relationship to the key is really good. So let's actually just try to do this together right now with the one that's written on this page. We'll do the right hand first, and I'll show you the kind of left hand pattern you should use.
Mm-hmm.
So so start with like 5 1 5 4 5.
5. So 5. Sorry.
So yeah, F on 5, and then
Yep.
B with your thumb, and then A flat, F sharp, G. Mm-hmm. And then G, E flat, D flat, G, and that's like 5 4 2 1. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay, and then D F at the end of that. So
Oof. Yeah. So what I'm doing right now is like trying to translate all that to playing by ear, and I think I do better when I actually just remember the melody instead of like trying to remember which notes they are. So I probably need some time to actually get that down.
sure, yeah, no, that's fine, and I don't mean to put you on the spot with it. I just wanted to get you started with this because I want to show you the left hand that we'll use too here as well, and this probably will come a little bit quicker. So the XY
Yeah.
pattern is actually the bebop accompaniment, basically. So it's like 3 6 2. We can play this really naturally by just using the X and Y patterns for this because they are 2/5s. So let's just go through that and play D D C.
With it.
And then
This makes a lot of sense to me. Yep.
okay, cool. So what you'll do, and if you don't feel good about doing this just yet, that's fine. This you can think about this later when you're practicing it. Is go through and just kind of get that under your fingers.
Yeah.
And then bring it to C. If you can just transpose this to like a maybe 3 keys, like maybe you learn this in the written key, C and F.
Yeah.
You'll start to see a lot of relationships here. I think you'll first think of it as how it relates to like, okay, so this is the third of D, and then this is B, and then the half step above the root, and then it encircles this. So you'll think of it in that way, and maybe you'll get here faster because you play primarily by ear. You want to think of how these notes actually relate to B flat. So like you can just see like, okay, this is the fifth, and then this is like. You'll start to see them as they relate to the scale, and it'll be easier to think of how to apply them creatively. So let's just start with transposing these two. So I'm making a sort of a text document here. So here's the things to learn. So I'd like you to learn the first bar of Anthropology, and let's just do that in all 12 keys because it'll be easy.
Yeah.
And then for the first ending of Anthropology, let's just say you're going to do this in C, F, and B flat with the X, Y left hands.
Yep.
Okay, cool. So now, one thing that I think would be really, really great for you to do, especially as somebody who works primarily by using your ears, let's sharpen those a bit. And why don't you try to be able to, by the next time I see you, be able to sing the melody of Anthropology. And accuracy doesn't matter so much. It's more about listening to it enough so that you really get comfortable with those sounds. And I would recommend put the music away for this and just
Yeah.
like listen to it and be like so you can hear I don't have the pitches very well because I'm not a singer, but I've got the rhythm and I know the contour of it.
Yep.
So that is the best teacher is listening to Charlie Parker and committing those things to memory and into your ear. So
Gotcha.
that I think will solidify a lot of this bebop scale stuff. The future project for you will eventually be transcribing some solos because a lot of solos do use the bebop scales. And I think once you are more comfortable with all the other stuff, it'll be much easier for you to learn it by ear. And then you'll be like, aha, I see the bebop scale. And that will answer questions. But everything in its own time, you know?
Gotcha. This is great. No, this is the homework I need. That's great. Thank you.
Okay, great. Okay, so before we move on to something else, do you have any questions about what we just talked about? Just so we don't leave you behind on anything.
No, it sounds perfect. I mean, basically, it sounds like okay. A, I need to listen to a lot more Charlie Parker, which I definitely do. So I'm grasping some concepts here around encircling and
Hmm.
deflecting.
Yeah, deflection. I mean, like, yeah, those terms don't worry too much about them. They're just what David Baker calls it. So,
Got it.
um,
There is that exercise that he shared with you that sounds interesting. That I'd be keen just to learn more about at some point. I'll probably Google it. It's probably out there somewhere. But yeah, it just sounds like I just need to really listen to more bebop tunes to really get grok it and
mhm.
sort of play it fluently and play by ear. That's what I do.
Yeah. Eventually, one thing that you should try to work up to is to take a tune through a bebop tune through all 12 keys. Like one thing that in David's bebop, how to play bebop classes that he would do is for the final, he would have like a repertoire of a bunch of tunes that you would need to know. And then you would come in there and then he would say a tune and the key. So the idea was that if the tune had Anthropology on it, you would need to be able to, like if he said D, it should be okay to play it in D. So that was a big part of his process, and I think that part is really valuable because being able to play Anthropology in all the keys, it's like if you don't have it under your fingers, you won't think of it when you improvise.
Yeah.
Like you know, so if you want to think about the exercises, the first in brief, basically one thing you could do if you wanted to do a mini David Baker exercise is play the C bebop scale and try starting from every possible note. So that would be like if you start from C,
Yep.
that one works. Okay, now let's start with the white keys first. If you wanted to start from D, and maybe we talked about this briefly last time. If you want to start your line on a non chord tone, we're in trouble, right? Because now we're backwards. So we have two options here. The first option is just if we play D as a quarter note and
Yep.
then go to eighth notes,
Mm-hmm.
it's as if we started on C. You know what I mean? The other option, play that D as an offbeat. 1, 3, 4, 1. Final way to think about it is put a half step in there.
Yeah, I was thinking like, yeah, put a D flat there. That makes sense.
Exactly. Or you could even do you could just D. Maybe it's the first note of a deflection. So basically, the idea is try starting on every single note of the bebop scale and be able to get through it. So it's like, okay, we're going to start on this note. Okay, immediately without thinking, I just will. I know some ways to get around it. And so eventually, you should try to use all the keys. So like even starting with D flat and stuff. But I think it would be enough for you to just try like, okay, with like D, F, and A. Those are the non-harmonic white keys of the C scale. Like you could, by using deflection or encirclement or adding a half step or changing the rhythm, you know enough to come up with a solution for that. So one thing you could just sort of mess around with is like, okay, my challenge today is going to be I'm going to do all of the chromatic scale and see if I can do it in C.
Yeah.
And that would be a good way to get your feet wet with that.
Sounds great. Thank you for that.
Cool. Okay, so I told you last week about one chord voicing thing that we were about to do this time. So we did all of our XY 251s. So now I'm going to show you the other thing, which is the YX Y251, and I'll kind of introduce an important exception that we're going to start to use now that we get the XYX. So one thing that you might notice as you've played is that sometimes when you're playing a dominant chord, it doesn't sound very sophisticated if you're just playing like 1, 7, 3, 5. Okay, so having more color in the chord generally sounds better. Like instead of playing a D, like playing an E, the 6th. It's immediately a better chord, and it still sounds good. It still sounds dominant.
Yeah.
So the first main leap to think about with chords is that not all notes in a chord matter equally. We kind of have a hierarchy of which notes are define the identity of a chord. So for jazz, we think of it as like the root obviously is important, but what's even more important than that are the 3rd and the 7th of a chord. So those are what like you might remember those as being called guide tones if you've heard somebody talk about them. So I'm going to screen share for a second so you can see this a little more clearly. So with this chord, I'm actually going to show you. Whoops. Okay. So we have this chord here. This is a G7. And the 5th can be left out. And it sounds exactly the same.
Right.
The chord's G7-ness has not been affected at all.
Mm-hmm.
We can even put a weird note like a D flat in there. That would be a flat 5. Still sounds like G7. It's a weird G7, but it still goes to C. So you can even do weirder stuff. You could have a sharp 5th. It still works as a dominant chord, right? So this note is up for grabs.
Does this only apply for dominant chords?
We'll get to that. You think of it for dominant chords, because they're already more tense, we can kind of do anything and they work.
Got it.
With major, it gets a little bit different. But let's think about minor chords actually, because that might be where you were going with this, because it makes a half diminished chord has a minor 5th.
Right.
And that is an exception here. If we think about C minor here, the main thing is that if I keep the G out of this chord, it doesn't sound any more or less minor. You know what I mean? It's still C minor.
Yeah.
And if I play an A with it, it's very dissonant in this position. But if I inverted this, it still sounds minor to have a 6th instead of a 5th. Major is the same way. So with dominant chords, we tend to not ever want to just play this. it tends to not sound very sophisticated to just play G, B, D, F. So we always use some kind of alteration. So alterations are things like what I just showed you with like a flat 5 or a sharp 5, or you can change the nines and stuff, or you can make it a 13. I'm going to show you the basic, simplest one, which is this is just think of this as a golden rule at first, which is that uh, on dominant chords in a X voicing or Y voicing, use the sixth instead of the fifth.
Hmm.
So the sixth, the real name for the sixth is the 13th, but the sixth is much easier to think about because
Yep.
it's a smaller number. So let's think about an X chord for a dominant chord. So I'll show you this one now. So let's have we have our left hand on 1/7 and the right hand on 3/5. This is probably the same G7 chord that you played last week when you did the X chord. So yeah, so this shape here.
Mhm.
So this is fine, but what's better is to play
The Y version.
well to play
The 6. Okay, yeah.
yeah. So this is the sixth versus the fifth, and you can kind of hear the sound. It's just more sophisticated sounding.
I'm gonna give it a shot here.
Mhm.
Huh.
Mhm. Yeah, it's way better.
Yeah.
I can't even explain why. It just is better for dominant chords. They it's like they're too consonant on their own compared to some of the other chords that we work with. So for the
Sorry, is it because the 13th resolves into the major seventh later? This is the same note, right? No. Yeah.
it
Isn't it?
resolves to the third. That's true.
Yeah.
So it becomes the third.
Yeah.
That very well could be. One thing to think about is that a C major 7 is actually a harsh dissonance compared to a dominant 7th. The dominant 7th is somehow a little bit more stable because it this dissonance here of B to F wants to move in, whereas a 1 chord, this is less stable. So it happens in jazz and in pop songs, but like Beethoven would never have put this as the main result, main chord of a piece. So our ears are a little bit more used to the dominant chord, so it's kind of like we have to screw it up a little bit more for it to really sound dissonant enough in the midst of jazz chords. If you're in Beethoven land and you're mostly playing triads, a seventh chord is dissonant compared to those.
Right.
But if you're using other seventh chords, then you need to make some other adjustments for it to blend. So there's a little bit of a change that we'll make when we play a YXY. So let me start with this hand. Okay, so here's our YXY chords. So you'll notice here that I've changed this chord to use the E instead of a D.
Yeah.
So you'll see it's just better than it's too obvious. So I prefer this one. And then the version that we'll be taking around the circle is this, which is just like the other voicing that you did before. We add another note on top, like sort of a melody note with your fifth finger. So let's try getting this under our fingers.
Cool. That's a fifth color tone thing, right? Is that a fifth?
Well, which one?
Sorry, this one, this D minor, the color note that you added. Is that a fifth? Is that a fifth?
Okay. So this is the fifth. So on the minor chord, the fifth is more okay than it is on the other chords. We already actually have a color tone in the Y chord.
Right.
That's the difference between X and Y. There's a ninth here.
Right. So
that makes it sound more sophisticated. So the fifth on top actually makes it maybe sound a little bit more reined in because there's a dissonance on the inside. Try getting this one under your fingers. So this is D F in the left.
Yeah.
and then we have C, E, A in the right hand.
Okay, cool. And then this is the fifth here. So it's
Oh, almost. It should be an A on top of the D minor.
yeah, got it.
That's it.
Yeah. Okay.
Good. You have the basic concept of it down. It sounds like so. I'll send you like before. I'll transpose this so that into some of these keys, so you can see this a little easier and take it around through the keys. But this is the next one to get under your fingers.
Gotcha.
Now, a brief aside about these chords, because you'll probably accidentally find this and wonder about it if you make a mistake transposing this or reading it, you will undoubtedly find something cool, which I want you to know what it is, so you will be less confused if you're like, this sounds good, but it's wrong. Why? So we talked a little bit about the alterations and how alterations can happen, and they sound really good on dominant chords. So let's think about some variations of this dominant chord. So I mentioned before that like a sharp 5 would sound good also. Let's listen to this chord with a sharp 5 instead. Like G, F, B, D sharp, A. Try getting that under your fingers just to hear it in front of you.
G, F, B, D sharp, A.
Uh-huh.
G, F, B, D sharp, A. Okay, so the G. Wait a minute. What am I playing again? Sorry.
I think you're playing it right. You're just playing it too high. So lower this to your left hand to below middle C. So the G and F is a little lower. Good. And then your right hand, you have B, D sharp, and A. Good. Now keep your hands on the piano. Let's now change your fifth finger of your right hand to A flat instead of A. Okay, so that's a sharp 5, flat 9 chord if you play that. And it still goes to C7 quite well. So C major 7. So if you resolve it to the same chord, it's just the same as playing the other G chord we had.
Right.
So let's go back to this one. So you have this one under your hands: G, F, B, D sharp, A flat. Mm-hmm. Okay, what happens if you raise your fifth finger to an A sharp? Is your pointer finger on D sharp?
Yes. Sorry, D sharp.
Okay,
Yeah.
there we go. Cool. Good. So these all sound good. Some are more dissonant than the others, but they're all kind of variations on a theme here. Like what we've done is we've played around with changing certain notes of this chord. So I'll write them all out here, and this isn't something that you should try to take through all the keys yet. I just want you to see, like, if you hit one of these chords and you're like,
Yeah.
oh man, this sounds cool. Why does it work? Because it's definitely a mistake.
Yep.
The reason is that you're playing around with changing some of the tones of the chord. Like you've altered the chords, which is you've altered the tones of the chord. So I'm actually writing the chord symbols for each of the ones that we played now. So if you look at them and kind of dissect them, you'll see why they're called what they're called. Like I've just put what's different about the chord inside these parentheses. So it's like a G9 chord. We have 1, 7, 3, 9, and a sharp 5.
Mm-hmm.
And the other one is a flat 9, which is the A flat, and the sharp 5 is the D sharp. And then this one, we have a D sharp here and an A sharp here. That's the sharp 5 and the sharp 9.
Yep.
If some of these sound too dissonant or less cool or different or better, don't worry, you'll get used to them when you hear them in the context of a piece. Just be aware that they exist, and they'll they'll be coming up.
Got
So let's actually open your real book to a tune now. I would love for you to uh, think about putting these under a melody. So, did have you learned Autumn Leaves before?
Yep.
Okay, so yeah, open it up to that. Okay, is it in what's the first chord here? A minor or C minor?
A minor.
A minor. Okay, this will actually be easier.
Yeah.
So let's put X and Y chords under this melody.
Okay.
So
Can I play it?
I'm sorry.
You want me to play it?
Please, yeah.
Yeah. It's X and Y. Right. So. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, where's the sharp here? The sharp is and it's a
Just F sharp in this piece.
yeah. So it is. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So when you play this one, let's get the third and the fifth under this, so that you play this underneath your melody. Mm-hmm. Good.
It's a D.
Mm-hmm. Now it's D7, so use a F sharp here. So it'll be D F sharp, and then
Yep. Yeah, it's a D7. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. So play that chord again, just so I can hear it a little better.
The G major
Mm-hmm.
7.
Yeah.
I guess I'm doing the X Y in my left hand. I'm just playing the melody in my right hand. So I'm trying to remember the right hand part of the X chord.
Mm-hmm.
So G major 7th would be
Good. That's it. Mm-hmm.
right.
Yep. And then you actually get to keep these two lower notes in common when you go to the C chord. Okay. So for this chord, I'll help you out with this one because it's a little weird. F sharp and E is 1 and 7 for the left hand.
F sharp and E. 1 and 7. Yeah.
Okay. And then in your right hand, grab A and C with your thumb and pointer finger. So C is the flat 5 because it's a minor 7 flat 5, and A is the third. Mm-hmm. Now, when we go to B7, let's keep those two notes the same in your right hand. Mm-hmm. So this is the left hand, and then the left hand will go to B and D sharp here.
B and D sharp.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And then the right hand will actually keep that A and C. Okay. So a cool sounding chord. What's the C doing here?
It's being it's being an alteration. It sounds
Yes, it is.
like. Right.
Yeah, very good. So the normal note of the Y chord would be C sharp, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
But it sounds cool here. C sharp also works. It's just a matter of taste. Okay,
Yeah.
so then we go on with our melody.
Yep.
Your right hand's correct. Good.
Yeah. So this is we're at a B already, right? So,
Hmm. Hmm. So here the left hand would be more normally would be E and D.
yeah.
Good. Okay. Okay. Now let's think of let's think about what the use of having the other option here. So this is the Y chord, right?
Mm.
I wouldn't necessarily maybe choose this one, but because this is right under the melody. But I just want to show you how it helps to be flexible. So let's get this under our fingers. So we have 1 3 in our left hand. So A C, and then 7 9 is G and B. Hmm.
Yep, and then
Yep. So
also
and then the next chord we can do it without the melody first would be 1 7 3 6.
1 7 3 6.
Yep. So the 3 is C sharp. Sorry, is F sharp, and then 6 is B.
Yep.
Hmm. Then for the major, 1 3 7 9. Yeah, F sharp and A in the right hand because it's G. So F sharp is the 7 of G, A is the 9. Hmm. Good.
Yep.
Then C major X chord. So that's 1 7 3 5. Good. Now we have this weird half diminished chord. So 1 3 over here. Then 7 and 9.
Hmm.
Hmm. Then we use B7, 1 7 3 6. So B A D sharp, G sharp. Hmm. Hmm. And then E minor, 1 3 7 9. Hmm. Okay, so I played it with the X and Y mostly just to demonstrate that like having two versions of this. You'll notice that although they feel kind of different, they are similar in that our left hand is always crawling between sevenths and thirds, and kind of moving down the piano. Whether we start on this or the seventh, it's the same pattern, and this hand tends to be really nice also
Hmm.
in terms of being easy to play, and primarily with these lower two fingers while the melody is up here.
Right. That's what I'm figuring out right now. So I've been so used to just playing purely the melody on my right hand that
Mm-hmm.
thinking about sort of changing from the X and Y and parts of the right hand is sort of tripping up me a lot. Like I'm like, okay, this is like learning an instrument all over again.
Yeah, it will though. It will get much easier than it feels now.
Yeah.
So what I'd like to do is kind of give you a path of some easy tunes to do
Yeah.
this with.
Yes.
So for our X and Y practice, so Autumn Leaves is really good
Yeah.
because it's chords also move in fourths, so it's like a layup for us. So I think you should just do the A sections of Autumn Leaves. With this because the rest of the tune's cool, but we get the point after the A for this. Let me think of some other ones here. How about we do uh, if you're not going to play, okay, so let's do a few of them that we don't play the melody on. Let's do Blue Bossa, no melody.
Okay.
Okay, so that's just C minor, F minor. It's just all twos and fives and everything.
Yep.
So next one with the melody, let's do. I'm trying to think of ones that are in easy keys too. Let's do all of me.
Hmm.
Okay, so if you open your book to all of me, one thing you'll notice um, with this tune is that it doesn't start with a 2/5 like the other ones that we've learned. It starts with like a C chord, right?
Yeah, C6 and E7. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So for right now, let's treat C6 as if it was C major 7 because
Oh,
it's practically equivalent, and
yeah.
we can just sort of see. So here we could do. For me, I think the closest E7 chord that makes sense is the Y chord. Okay, so 1 3 7 9 5.
Mm.
Okay, so and then we can do X chord here, Y chord.
Hmm.
Then you'll notice we go from D to E. So we're moving by a step. We're not moving a fourth. So if you're moving by just a step, it makes sense if you used Y, use Y again.
Mm.
Then we have X, Y. It's D again, so we use Y again.
Hmm.
And X. And then doing two X's in a row here feels more natural because the melody is a C. So unless you have super huge hands, that's a extremely hard reach.
Right.
I would never play this, even though I can almost reach it. It's just sort of like it's too awkward.
Yeah.
So moving to X here is okay. Remember, it's no hard and fast rules here. It's just a general principle. So if something's unplayable, use the other one.
Gotcha.
Okay, so all of me is good. Other one, Alice in Wonderland is a great tune. I actually probably should have thought of this one first. Alice in Wonderland is just a few pages before it. It's also in C,
Hmm.
and here, like you can think about starting with Y. I'll just even write that. Start with Y,
Hmm.
and then so just wend your way through these tunes and um, try to apply the X and Y's as best you can, and feel free to make compromises with the voice leading if it
Hmm.
just makes it more manageable to play. Because ultimately, these are a tool that you'll improvise with,
Yeah.
and you'll go to which one feels the rightest at the moment. And a lot of times it won't be an intellectual call. It will just be like, oh, I've played this chord a million times and it is close, so I will play it.
Got it.
One final one, Beautiful Love,
Okay.
which is short. So
I love how you're picking all the standards that I've rarely played as a drummer.
well, I think
It's great.
they'll be good ones for you too, because you'll probably, even though you rarely played them, you probably have heard them, so they'll be somewhat familiar.
Yes.
And these ones, I think, all with the exception of Blue Bossa, are all really well recorded by Bill Evans, so they might be familiar in that way too.
They are. Yeah, yeah.
Cool. Okay, so with these, I want you to think of them kind of like you're grazing through the tunes. Like, don't work up all five. Like, here's my like masterful arrangement. Like,
Hmm.
don't worry about doing it like that. Pick one through and try to get through it, and just make tough calls. Like, okay, it looks like X is the best chord to start this with, just because it's
Hmm.
not cramped,
Yeah.
and then go from there. And then maybe take one each practice session,
Hmm.
and then after you've kind of exhausted your way through that, you can start with a new tune next time. Just so you're flexing this muscle. Okay.
Got it.
Okay, so to review, I've got that list of 5 tunes for you.
Yep.
Try to learn Anthropology, the melody by ear, singing it.
Yep.
Melody, first bar of Anthropology in all 12 keys, as well as the first ending in 3 keys. And then I will send you the PDF of the YXY chords. Try to take those around through the key circle as well.
Yeah, I think you sent me the PDF with XYX chords already, so I already have that.
Oh, okay. So I mean the reversed, because I don't think there was YXY, right?
You sent me in YXY. The first PDF was YXY, so I got that, but not with the new
Oh,
six on it. Yeah,
oh, okay. Hold on a second. I thought I sent you XYX.
you did. You sent me XYX the last lesson, but before the first lesson, you sent me like this introduction to the X and Y chord
Oh, okay.
with the YXY on it as well.
Oh, okay. Have you already done those through the keys?
Yeah, but not with the not with the interesting six that you added. So all you did was
Oh,
with the old Y where we wholesale on the dominant
mhm.
chord, we just move the first 2 fingers down a step.
Yes. Okay. That's yes. That's true. Okay. Well, then in that case, I'll I also have in that thing, just that you have enough new stuff to sink your teeth into. I'll also include those alteration things
Yeah,
that we learned, but with the sharps and the flat fives and nines. And if you
definitely.
yeah, if you want to try moving those around the keys, that would probably be good. I just don't want to strike the balance between giving you too much and too little. So let me know if you need more stuff to practice. I know it's going to be 2 weeks.
Yeah, this is gonna be great. I think for me to start and chew on. If anything, I'll shoot an email. Just on the alterations point, it's just in theory, it's just like a matter of just varying between a flat nine and a sharp nine and a flat five and a sharp five, right? Not really, not except the sharp. Is it variations of those two? Or not?
Primarily nines and fives. Yeah, those are what we alter the most. The flat five is equivalent. Sorry, a flat five is equivalent to a sharp 11. So
Yeah,
like it's the same. Like the difference between a sharp 4 and a flat 5, and a
right.
flat 13 is the same as a sharp 5. Like it's just primarily you're working with nines and fives, and most everything you alter will be that.
Got it.
Um, we'll talk more about that. Alteration's a deep topic, but once you get better at seeing them, it makes a ton more sense. So, okay, great. Well, good luck. If you have any questions with this, shoot me an email. But otherwise, I'll see you in 2 weeks after I send you this stuff. Okay.
All right, Zach, thank you so much for
Cool.
again. You got lots to work
Yeah,
on.
my pleasure. Okay, cool.
All
See
right,
you.
have a good
Take
one.
care. Thank you. Bye.